Again, thank you to our distinguished guests, Congressman Lieu and Congressman Waters, for being with us today. We also have quite a few other local elected officials and other distinguished guests I'd like to recognize, and I would just ask that you hold your applause until the end of the list of introductions. Heidi Ashcraft, these are Torrance City Council members, Heidi Ashcraft, Tim Goodrich, Jeff Rizzo, and then Torrance City Clerk, Rebecca Poirier, Torrance City Manager, Leroy Jackson, from the Fire Department, Chief Martin Cerna, former Torrance Mayor Dee Hardison, former Torrance City Council Member Bill Applegate, former Torrance City Council Member Tom Brewer, former City Council Member Rolling Hills Estates Britt Huff, Martha Deutsch of the Torrance Unified School District Board of Education, also Terry Reagans from the School Board in Torrance, Michael Wormers from the Torrance School Board, and Dr. George Mannon, Superintendent of the Torrance Unified School District, Katie Crumpy, Chief Academic Officer at the School District in Torrance, also Rob Catherman from the Water Replenishment District, Susie Siemens, who is the former mayor of Rolling Hills Estates, and Sue Herbers, former City of Torrance clerk. Join me in applauding and thanking them for being here with us today. I'd also ask all of the current members of the board to stand when I read your name. John Heffernan, AT&T, Laurie Brandt, Red Car Brewery and Restaurant, Kirk Rosberg from the Torrance Bakery, Jack Folkert, UCLA Health, Leslie Willie, Kaiser Permanente, Rob Van Lingen Towing, Jeff Dill from PBF Energy, Alexandra Warnier from Honda, Jennifer Frew, Green Hills Memorial Park, Linda Amato, Doubletree, Tim Thompson, Centaurus Financial, Marianne Brooks, Gourmet Grinds, Ellen Mary Michelle, Pelican Products, Latrice McLaughlin, Connecta Federal Credit Union, Joe On of Northrop Grumman, Chris Cagle from the South Bay Workforce Investment Board, Josh Thomas of South Bay Equity. And I just want to say, those who are standing, I want to thank you guys for serving on the board of directors. It's really a huge honor for me to be able to serve in this capacity with all of your support and all the work. So please join me in recognizing them and their efforts to make the chamber happen. Thank you so much. I also want to recognize a few former chairs of the board of the chamber that are here. Aaron Alcides, Jack Folkert, Clifton L. Johnson, Dan Keaton, Sherry Kramer, and Tara O'Brien. You may stand if you'd like, and we'll recognize you as well. Thank you for being here. And just briefly, before we get to the meat of the event, on your table, you'll find a placard with today's social media information. And I would just think, it looks like this, it's a small gray sheet. Just take a look at that, and we'd encourage you to post and share with friends, letting folks know about today's event and all the great things that we're learning and enjoying here today with the appropriate hashtags, of course. I now want to invite Leslie Willie, who is Senior Vice President and Area Manager for Kaiser Permanente South Bay Medical Center, to the stage, and she will be introducing today's first speaker.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. So it's my privilege and honor to this afternoon to introduce Congressman Ted Lieu here today, and actually I had just the wonderful pleasure of meeting his right hand, Betty, at our table today, so I wanted to acknowledge her because I know that you are such a support to Mr. Lieu. So Congressman Lieu's district reaches along the coast from Malibu through Palos Verdes, including beautiful beaches, world-class universities, and guess what else? Some incredible, incredible hospitals. Kaiser Permanente is just one of them. So prior to representing us in Washington, D.C., Congressman Lieu served in the California State Legislature and here in Torrance on the City Council. In addition to serving as an elected official, he has also served our nation in the United States Air Force and in the reserves. Thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. We are so fortunate to have him in Congress advocating for issues of the utmost importance to all of us, some of which include cybersecurity. We've heard a lot about that. ending veteran homelessness, and of course we've also heard a lot about making healthcare affordable in this country, a critical issue. So please join me in welcoming Congressman Ted Lieu to the stage. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It is such a great honor for me to be here. I want to thank Jonathan Butler and the whole Torrance Chamber Area Commerce Board for their wonderful leadership, for inviting me to speak. It's an honor here to be with Congresswoman Maxine Waters, to serve with her in Congress. She, as you may know, is the ranking member on the Financial Services Committee. She's been fighting the good fight for America for a very long time. Let's give her a great big round of applause. And I want to thank my wife, Betty, for being with me here. Without her, nothing could be done. And very excited we have members of Torrance City Council here. I want to thank the council and their staff for making this city so great. It's one reason Betty and I choose to make Torrance our hometown. I want to give a shout out to police and fire. And as you know, Torrance is one of the few cities that still has a Class 1 rated fire department. So congratulations. And then to the members of the Torrance School Board of Education and your staff, thanks for the amazing work that you do. It's one reason that Betty and I choose to send our 2 children to Torrance Unified Schools. So thank you for making a great school district. And I love coming to Torrance Area Chamber of Commerce events. I will always have a special place in my heart for you. It was where I first got started in the community. In 1999, I went through the Leadership Torrance class, and then in 2000, I did one of the hardest things in my life, which was I ran the Leadership Torrance class. And so very excited to see that I didn't kill it, and it's still going strong, and congratulations on that great program. So I thought I'd talk to you today about 3 subjects. The first is the state of the economy. Second is going to be on your health insurance. And then third, I'm going to talk about cybersecurity. So in terms of the economy, I thought it might be helpful to think about where we've been in the last 8 years. Today is President Barack Obama's last full day in office. And 8 years ago, our unemployment nationally was at 10%. Last month, it dropped down to a low of 4.7%. In the state of California 8 years ago, unemployment hit 12.1%. As of last month, it went down to 5.3%. And in LA County, we had a similar reduction in unemployment from 12.4% 8 years ago to less than 5% as of last month. And in the South Bay, we continue to be an engine of economic growth. For LA County in 2015, South Bay created over 12,700 net new jobs, and it is an amazing district to be able to represent. At the same time, if you look at the stock market, 8 years ago in March, it hit a low of 6,443. Today, as we stand here, the stock market is 3 times higher. That is an amazing surge in just 8 years. And yet, there is a lot of anger in different parts of America. And so it took me a while to understand this, because I probably represent one of the least angry districts in America. But I think it's clear that the economy did not work for everyone. And there were parts of America did not see the same benefits of the economy that other parts did. There were states that clearly did less well than California did in terms of coming out of the recession. You have coal miners that are having a very difficult time in coal mining country, and that's not because of governmental policies or simply because of the marketplace. You had cheaper forms of energy basically start to wipe out the coal industry, and that's simply a very difficult problem to resolve. You have areas of America where automation took a huge and big blow to their economy. The same factory that makes automobiles today needs a lot less human beings than the same factory 30 years ago because of robots and of automation. If you look at Amazon.com, there was this startling statistic I read. In 2013, they had 1,000 robots. Last year, they had 45,000 robots. And it's not just that they displaced potentially 44,000 jobs, because these robots are more efficient on average than human beings. We're talking about orders of magnitude in terms of job displacement. So these are difficult issues, and it's something that's really hard to fix unless we look at the right solutions. Blaming minorities, immigrants are not the right solutions to that, because it's going to turn out that that's not the cause of job loss. A lot of job loss is because of automation. It's because of wage differentials in other countries. You can't fix that, even if you did build a wall and made Mexico pay for it. So what do we need to do? Well, if I was king for a day, I would make every single school district across America, whether it's in rural Pennsylvania or in the South Bay or in Detroit, Michigan, teach computer science. As a member of the House Budget Committee last term, I authored an amendment that the Obama administration had proposed that was going to give $3 billion in funding to school districts across America so that they can train teachers in school districts to start teaching computer science to our students in high school. That unfortunately did not pass, but we're going to keep trying and try again, because we cannot stop innovation, nor should we. But we can teach our children and retrain adults to make sure that they're poised to take advantages of the 21st century. So let me sort of move to healthcare, and you've been reading about it in the news. Our Republican colleagues last week chose to repeal the Affordable Care Act without a plan. You don't have to be partisan to understand that that was just a really stupid thing to do. I am on the Affordable Care Act because they make members of Congress purchase Obamacare if you want it, to have health insurance. I was not allowed to purchase other forms of health insurance, so I am very supportive of fixing the ACA. There are lots of things I would do to fix it, but repealing it without a plan makes no sense, because you don't know if this next plan is going to be better or worse. So why would you repeal something without even knowing what the alternative plan is? And what I want to speak to, although the ACA did do amazing things for about 20 million people, gave them health insurance they never had before, I want to talk to the 156 million Americans who have employer-based health coverage. That is most of you in this room. There were amazing things that the Affordable Care Act did for your health coverage. It eliminated lifetime maximum caps on your health insurance. It also said people cannot be denied for pre-existing conditions, and it let folks who are up to age 26 be on their parents' health plan. So what does that mean? That means if you've got cancer on your employer-based health coverage, and it is a kind of cancer that requires a lot of money to treat, under the ACA, the health insurance company can't say, we're just going to stop providing treatment. If you repeal it, that's what's going to happen. Those on employer-based health coverage, the 156 million Americans, if they or their family members have cancer and it blows past a lifetime maximum, then you stop getting treated, and you're going to have to either file for bankruptcy or find another way to pay for that cancer treatment. If you are a 23-year-old who has a pre-existing condition, whether it's diabetes or cancer or something else, you currently can go on your parents' employer-based health coverage plan. If you repeal the ACA, that also goes away. So there are huge effects, not just for the 20 million people who buy insurance off exchanges, for all of you, for people who have an employer-based health coverage, because the ACA addressed both groups of folks. And I do look forward to the plan that will come forth at some point. Now keep in mind, Republicans have had 6 years to come up with a plan. And to me, there's a pretty simple reason why we have not seen an alternative plan yet. I can sum it up in one word: math. You cannot keep all the great parts of the Affordable Care Act and not pay for it. So you can't require insurance companies to not have lifetime coverage caps, make insurance companies not deny people for pre-existing conditions, let insurance companies force them to carry people who are 26 years or younger on their parents' plan without helping these insurance companies pay for that coverage. And what happens when you repeal it without a plan is you need to find other sources of funding. For 6 years, no one was able to find a better source of funding than that set forth in the Affordable Care Act. So now we're seeing proposals being introduced in Congress to either cut Social Security or to privatize Medicare. And I just have to say, those are really bad sources of funding for the Affordable Care Act. So I do look forward to see if there is an alternative plan. But if there is not, then we're going to have to put a lot of pressure to say, look, let's not repeal this thing until you can find a better plan. And as President Obama said in his speech last week, if folks can come up with a better plan that controls healthcare costs, covers about the same amount of people, and provides the same or better health coverage, then he's going to support it. And I will support it as well. So far, we have not seen it. So our hope is that the American people understand that you can't just repeal something if you don't have something better to put in its place. So now I'm going to transition to cybersecurity for the rest of my speech. And the goal of this part of this speech is to scare you. I want you to understand how easy it is for you to get hacked. And I want you to start thinking about how you can protect yourself. So last year, 60 Minutes called my office, and they went to my staff and they said, hey, we want to hack your boss's cell phone. And my staff said, of course, go right ahead. It was a little more complicated than that. 60 Minutes didn't want to mess up my personal cell phone. So what they did is they went ahead, bought an Apple iPhone at a store, gave it to me. I opened up the box, I took the phone, and they said, keep it for about a week, and we're going to try and hack it. So I kept it. I was in Washington, D.C. I was here in the South Bay. I went back for my interview with 60 Minutes. First thing they did is they played back recordings I had of phone conversations between me and my staff and me and other people from this cell phone. They showed every place I had traveled with this phone, and they showed text messages that were sent and acquired. That was really quite creepy and disturbing. And it is a flaw known as the signaling system number 7 flaw. People speak of it as SS7. So if you just Google SS7, all sorts of articles will pop up. And the way this flaw works is that many, many decades ago, when we set up our telephone networks, we assumed that every telephone network was what was known as a trusted entity, a trusted network. So let's say you're making a call to Africa, right? Your USA network might, hand off to some network in the Middle East that then hands off to an African telephone network. Well, it turns out that some of these trusted networks are owned by countries such as Iran, North Korea, Russia, as well as criminal syndicates associated with these nations. So if you just had access to one of these telephone networks, you can listen in on anybody's cell phone in real time, just knowing their cell phone number. So right now, for example, you can have Russians listening in on your cell phone if they knew your cell phone number in real time. And it is a difficult problem to fix. So 2 days after 60 Minutes ran their episode, the Federal Communications Commission launched an investigation. They're looking at ways to fix it. Committees in Congress are looking at ways to fix it. And it is difficult. There is something you can do to protect yourself, which is you can go to encryption. There are a number of telephone apps that you can download that will encrypt your text messages as well as encrypt your voice messages. For example, one of these applications is known as WhatsApp. It is owned by Facebook. You've got other applications known as Signal or Telephone. And if you use those applications, then whatever you send out through your phone or receive will be encrypted. The difficulty is you got to get the other person on the other line to use that same app. So it is difficult to get there, but I'm trying to get more and more people to do this. So with my own staff, we're starting to communicate on WhatsApp. Now, there are simpler ways for your phones to get hacked other than from a foreign government or criminal syndicate, right? So that's probably not a high percentage probability that your phone will get hacked that way. But there is a massive probability your phone will get hacked simply from criminal hackers. And one of the easiest ways is through public Wi-Fi. My advice is I would almost never sign on to public Wi-Fi if I were you, unless you are very, very sure that that's a secure Wi-Fi system. So let's say you're at LAX airport. Would you know if the Wi-Fi you signed on to, if the correct one was LAX, or LAX1, or LAX_1? Because if you click on the wrong one, and it happens to be from the hacker sitting 20 feet away from you who's sending out this LAX_1 Wi-Fi that's fake, then everybody that signs on to that, he has their personal information within seconds. It is something known as spoofing. It is incredibly easy for hackers to do. Some of you have your phone set up to log on to Wi-Fi automatically, which means you can walk by a Starbucks. Your phone can log on to a fake Wi-Fi system, and then you've just lost all the contents of your information to a hacker without even knowing it. So if I were you, I would also disable on your phones the automatic logging on to Wi-Fi feature. Again, you can go to encryption to mitigate some of that, but if you log on to a wrong Wi-Fi network, you're going to basically become the victim of identity theft, and you're going to have problems from hackers getting your information. Something else you may want to think about, many of you, like me, like Congresswoman Waters and others, we will work on our cell phones, right? We have a desktop in our office, and then when we leave the office, we'll send emails through our cell phones. The problem is you've got lots of CIOs. So at the federal level, you've got House of Representatives CIO, Chief Information Officer, who spends an incredible amount of money and resources protecting our desktops. You've got companies that spend a huge amount of money protecting the desktops at your workplace. But they do nothing to protect your mobile device, your mobile phone, that is connected to that desktop. And that's highly troubling because cybersecurity is only as strong as your weakest link, and your mobile phone is going to be that weakest link. So what that means is the huge amount of money at the House of Representatives that we spend protecting our desktops and our servers from being attacked, hackers will just go, oh, well, let me just go try and hack a members of Congress cell phone, because there's nothing that protects it. And once they hack it, then they become me, right? Then the emails that get sent through our secure server that come from me, people will assume it is from me. And for a period of time, those fake emails can get a lot of information, because if I send an email to somebody asking for information, they're going to respond to me because they think it's me. But if it's a hacker, then all of a sudden all the information goes to this hacker. And you have these huge vulnerabilities in our systems. This led Congressman William Hurd, a Republican out of Texas, who also has a computer science degree. We're actually 2 of the 4 members of Congress that have computer science degrees, to send a letter last year to all our staff and all members of Congress to say, look, here are some steps to try to secure your cell phones, because this is a huge problem. We had an oversight hearing last year. No, actually it was last month, where we had federal agencies and their chief information officers. And I asked a series of questions which went like this. Do you all have cell phones connected to your public servers, and do you protect them? So some federal agencies actually took the policy position, which I think is a good one. They simply said, we are not connecting anybody's mobile device to our governmental systems unless it's from a governmental cell phone that we protect and we issue. Other federal agencies took the position, and this one person, she was a CIO of this agency that I'm not going to name, and she basically said, I don't view mobile devices or personal mobile devices as my responsibility. She felt so bad about that statement that a couple days later she actually called my office back and said, I just want to clarify that statement. So I think we're making some inroads in trying to get federal agencies to understand that when you connect mobile devices, whether it's governmental or personal, into the governmental network, it is a vulnerability. And the same resources you spend to protect the governmental desktop and server, you need to spend protecting that cell phone. So, sort of taking a step back, right? There's been massive cyber attacks, not just at the federal government, but also in the private sector. You've had Anthem Blue Cross, Home Depot, Target, the list goes on in terms of companies that have been breached from cyber attacks. And some of these attacks, again, right, hackers figure out the weakest point of vulnerability. So in the Target attack, the way they actually went in and got everybody's credit cards, it was through a subcontractor who worked on the HVAC system. So let's just think about that, right? Target could have done everything they could, but because this subcontractor on the HVAC system had a weakness, it was exploited. Let me go back to federal government again. 2 years ago, articles came back that said our CIA director's AOL email account got hacked. My first thought was, why is he still on AOL? But beyond that, the way that hack happened is hackers posed as Verizon employees, then tricked some legitimate Verizon employees to give up information about his account. And then through that, they were able to hack on his AOL account. So you actually had another company that had a cybersecurity weakness that affected AOL and this CIA director. So we need to upgrade cybersecurity across both the federal as well as private sectors, and that's going to take two things. One, it's just going to take straight up money, right? We just need to upgrade these systems. On the Oversight Committee last year, we had these hearings where these federal agencies would say, you know, that their mainframes were being run still on languages like COBOL, which, you know, 2 decades ago, people were saying, wow, this is really out of date. And it was never designed to withstand 21st century cyber attacks. So on the Budget Committee, I also authored an amendment of over $3 billion to provide a revolving fund for federal agencies to be able to upgrade their computer systems. It didn't pass a Budget Committee, but it did result in legislation that I co-authored, again with Republican Congressman William Hurd, that now, through legislation, is going to give these federal agencies a pot of money, over $3 billion, to access as a revolving fund to upgrade their systems. But the second thing that needs to happen is we need human beings to change their view on cybersecurity. The NSA, for example, is one of the, probably the most well-protected governmental system in the world. We know a lot about the NSA now, right? Because a human being sort of went off the reservation and disclosed a lot about it. So you've got that problem you need to resolve. But most of the time, it's not because a human employee is doing something nefarious or insidious. It's because they don't know that the link they just clicked on was a spear phishing attack that caused malware to be installed on their system. So the US military has been onto this for quite a while. And well over a decade ago, the US military set up US Cyber Command. When I go up to do my Air Force Reserve duty, I've got to certify annually my cybersecurity training. If I don't, they kick me off the system. I've got to do refresher courses. There are units within the Air Force whose sole job is to try to trick me and other people to do incorrect things on the email and so on, and they tell you what you did was wrong. So the US military is just harder to hack. But most civilian agencies, most folks in the private sector don't do that. They don't do that sort of training. They do very little to teach their employees cyber security practices. And if you don't do that, it just takes one employee, right, in a large company to make a mistake, and then the hacker can get in and start trying to get information. So it's referred to basically as social engineering, and I think we need to be much more aware of what hackers do to try to get that information. If you look at the breaches that happened with John Podesta on the Hillary Clinton campaign, it wasn't because they, were able to do this clandestine investigation and loaded in malware. If you read the public reports, it's because he clicked on an email link that was malware, and it stalled on the system, and wham, all the information got disclosed. So for those of you in the private sector, I just want you to be much more aware of how easy it is to get hacked, And let me conclude on this, on cybersecurity, on this last point. There are now profit incentives for hackers to go after you, and it's called ransomware. So it started with hospitals. Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital in Southern California was hacked last year, and what they did